Speaking on renewal and risk management, the president of Ron Widener and Associates, Mr. Ron Widener. Come on up, Ron, my friend. You'll like him.
Yeah, that's right. My goodness. Well, here we are again. Wasn't that a crazy commercial? Well, it's me. I'm the real Ron Widener. As my commercial said earlier, I am a dealer, and my job today is to provide you a short orientation on the dealer license renewal process, which is coming very shortly. So please understand, I'm just the messenger, and I'm presenting to you today what you need to know to get the license renewed. In addition today, I get to present two topics. The first one, of course, is renewing your licenses, but the second one is very important, very misunderstood by dealers, but if you'll bear with me, I think you'll learn a lot on that one as well. It's your mandated and required dealer insurance that most people hate to have to buy until they really need it. And we're going to explain to you how to avoid having unpaid claims, because it does happen. Well, I thought I had that coverage. It doesn't work that way. And we call that section we're going to cover called risk management. You know, wearing two hats, being a dealer and having an insurance agency, which I think is successful, and I appreciate your business if you do business with me, but I got to thinking years ago, who would better understand the dealer's needs for insurance than a dealer? How about that? So I decided to go in the insurance business as well, and we're going to now begin the license renewal process for 2018, and then I'll cover that risk management stuff a little bit later on. So let's begin, if I can find my little thing here. The first thing we're going to cover is that some of the dealers here today may have two licenses. You may have the used car dealer license, but you also may have a rebuilder or parts dealer license, and there are two separate licenses. So I'm going to briefly mention that license as well because it's coming up for renewal in December. Now, currently, rebuilders and parts dealers are not required to attend the continuing education class to renew that license. But the used car guys have to attend it every couple of years. So congratulations, getting it out of the way, get your CE done, and it's a great convention to be at, so everything is perfect. Now, I'd like to take a moment to remind you, if you're a rebuilder or parts dealer, a few years ago, they passed that new mandatory law that you've got to sign up for the secondary metal recycling reporting. And the company you sign up with, and I'm not advertising, they're the only ones I think, it's called Auto Data Direct. So if for some reason you're not signed up, it is the law. So be sure and get signed up to report your dismantled vehicles. And the website is very simple, add123.com. Add123, as simple as that. It's a simple registration. And when you go online, they're going to issue a National Motor Vehicle Title Information System number. Now with that, let's talk about the used motor vehicle dealer license. First of all, I want to remind you, very important, that the person required to attend or take the continuing education class is the designee on the license. No other person can take this class for license renewal, especially online. Now, I think last year a few people had their wife do it for them. What do you think? But anyway, I hope that wasn't one of you. But again, if you're going to take the CE, be sure and do it. Now, as far as the in-person classes like here today, anyone can attend, for education. But if you willfully intend to defraud by sending the wrong person, your license can be suspended or revoked. So I'm assuming the ones here today are the ones to need the class. Now, with that, while the used parts and rebuilder license will expire this year, December 31st, 2017, our dealer licenses will not expire until March 31st of 2018. So you're way ahead of the game. March 31st of 2018. So step number one, you got it out of the way, and that is to attend this class today. And when the class is over today, you get your certificate, and then you're ready to wait till January to renew your license. Now, I've been advised that the license division should notify you usually 60 to 90 days prior to your license expiration. But often, you may not get that notification by email or by mail. And it's your responsibility. You must remember to renew your license. Believe it or not, I get people that call me up and say, I didn't get the email, I forgot to renew my license. It becomes a real big problem. So you've been advised to be sure to get it done. Do not forget, put it in your iPhone or whatever on your calendar. Now, for the rebuilder and parts dealer, your online renewal portal to renew will open sometime in October. But for the used car side of it, that won't open until January. And this is what? July? It's a long time away, so be sure and mark your calendar not to forget. When the portal does open, there's a link on the GIADA website that you can click on to renew your license. But if you don't do that, their state's website is simply sos.ga.gov. sos.ga.gov. Now, when you log in, when you try to log in, you have to use the username and password that you set up to print your current license. Well, what if you forgot that? Can't remember what it was? Not a big deal. You can simply click on the icon to update your username and password. In fact, I think that's a little bit too easy because anybody can change it for you if they know your name. But remember, you must have the username and password to log in. Now, once you log in, it's going to take you to a simple questionnaire. But the questionnaire has about four questions, and they're very important. Read them carefully. If you put the wrong answer, you might get rejected. Those questions and answers determine if you can renew your license. So be very careful of that. Read them carefully. Now, once you answer the questions, they're going to direct you to pay money, and you pay it online. The renewal fee is only $150. You pay it online. Then once the process is complete, oh, I got bad news. Some of you folks might get selected for the CE audit. And if you do, you have to print out a CE audit form and attach a copy of your seminar certificate and send it in. So you might experience a little bit of delay if you're unlucky enough to get selected for that, but we don't see that very often. Now, the main thing here is that before you do this, which you've done today, be sure and get your CE done. Now, otherwise, once you get all done, you then may print your new license in black and white. Now, they used to have them in color all the time, but if you want one in color, you may order that while you're there, but it's an additional $25, but black and white is just fine. And by the way, we tend to change our email addresses from time to time, so be sure that you update your email address for future notifications from the division. Now, it's important you don't make any further changes on your license because most changes require a paper application and sometimes fees, and sometimes they require an inspection to get approval. Now, in the event that you fail to renew your license by March 31st for whatever reason, you can renew the used car license by May 31st with a small late fee. That would be $220. But beware, any attempt to renew after May 31st will be rejected because they do mandate that you submit a full reinstatement application, the whole 9 yards, plus a fee of $420. So it's very important you renew on time. I'd also like to point out, because I know we've got some part dealers here and rebuilders here, that you must renew yours by December 31st of this year, but you can renew late up until February 28th. But again, after February 28th, you cannot renew. You got to submit a full reinstatement application with a fee of only $400. Now, with that said, here's the thing that you need to know about when not to renew your license. Well, going out of business is one, I guess. How about that? But not to renew. First, if you made any changes in your ownership structure, do not renew. You must submit a full application within 30 days of that change to be considered for approval. But here's the bad part. Rules are kind of crazy. No two companies may operate from the same location, so it technically puts you out of business and creates a gap in your company operation. I talked to a board member about that last night. That's kind of crazy. But second, you may have moved. We do see a lot of dealers who have become transient, and they might move to a different location. And if you have moved, be sure and submit an address change form to get the new location approved before you try to renew the license with the wrong address. And when you do that, they do require an inspection to be approved. See, that sometimes takes a few weeks. Another thing is sometimes we want to change our name by adding a doing business as name we call a DBA name. Well, if you want to do that, don't renew your license. You must submit a name change form to the board and get approval for the new name. Put your new signs up. Everything has to match. And last and very important, this probably doesn't pertain to you, but if the current designee on your license is no longer with the company, what are you going to do? They can't go to CE. So then you've got to submit a change of designee application. That person has to attend the seminar or be fingerprinted. And worst of all, they have to be a full-time employee or an owner. You just can't appoint anyone to represent your company for licensing. But once they go to the seminar themselves and get fingerprinted, submit the application with a fee of $120, they usually approve the change pretty easily. But once they get the new approval for the change of designee, then they may renew the license for your company, but then they got to have continuing education to renew the license. So a word of caution here, a lot of people ignore the board's rules. If you fail to act within 30 days, you could be subject to a fine by the used car division for notifying them. Now, if you have any, this is a pretty simple process. If you have any questions, GIADA is right there for you. I'm sure you know their phone number, but I like giving phone numbers, 770-745-9650. But if you're not a member, you need to call the license division, and their phone number, if you want to look it up, is 478-207-2440. Now, another thing is that we do see a large turnover in automobile dealers. You know, it's usually the broker operations that do that more than anybody else. But I'd like to point out, it's no shame in closing your business. You just learned it's not working for you, and it's time to consider another operation. But if you do close, move out of your office or your building, please turn your license in. And a lot of folks don't do that. They're coming to look for you for operating illegal. Just write on it, cancel, and send it down to the used car board and let them know that you're getting out of the car business. Now, I'm hoping that if you close up, you won't continue to operate from your home illegally and keep that license. That is illegal. Please help us out by surrendering your license to avoid future problems from the used car board. Now, I'd like to also remind you about your dealer tag. You know, a lot of guys get this mixed up, and ladies get it mixed up. The dealer tag does not expire the same time your dealer license does. If you're not sure when yours expires, just walk outside, look at your tag. There's a decal on it. It has a month. It expired the last day that's on the decal. Now, why is that important? Because I'm a dealer. I just got my renewal papers in the mail. They're right back in. Why? It's a slow process. You've got to be done by mail. And when your tag's expired, you can't drive on it, but worse than that, they can cut you off on transferring titles and everything else. So it's very important you get the tags renewed as quickly as possible. Now, here's another thing. You may already know this, but just in case you don't, they've tightened up on the number of tags we can have. Now, I'm sure you probably knew about for every 20 cars you sell, you qualify for another tag, right? Well, guess what? It's not history, it's the past current year. So if business was off this past year, you might not qualify for all the tags. So think about that. And a lot of people got upset about it. I can't get my tag, you know. But one other thing, if you did make any changes on your license at all, be sure and update your dealer tag information. It has to correspond for everything else. Very important. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't preach on this, but we know that some dealers out there use the tags improperly, downright illegally. There's confusion about this. I get moans and groans from dealers all the time. I got a ticket. Well, I hate to say this, but sometimes the police officer was incorrect to give you the ticket. But because some of us abuse the dealer tag usages, I guess they don't trust us. We're car dealers, what can I say? But you know, be aware that when you're driving a vehicle, whether it's you, your salesman, an employee, be sure you have in the vehicle important documents. a copy of the dealer tag law, your insurance ID card to prove you have insurance because they're not reported, as well as proof you or your employee work for the company driving that vehicle. Now why? The dealer tag can be used for private use, but only by owners and full-time employees. Not your wife, your girlfriend, or both, your son, your daughter. It has to be driven by owners, and so it's very important that you be careful and not abuse the tag. The more we abuse it, the more they're going to tighten up on us. It's very, very important. And one other thing, they got this great thing for the buy here, pay here guys. When you get your tag renewal, they're going to send you a form called the MVDF1 to update your buy here, pay here status. If you got that 95% buy here, pay here, you get that big TABT discount. So you want to be sure that you take care of that. Tags, renewal, market calendar, don't forget these things. And please don't abuse the tag. We're just asking for trouble. It's a great thing. Now, many years ago, you couldn't legally drive that tag for private use, so they gave it to us. Let's not blow that and lose it. Well, that part was pretty simple, wasn't it? Not a big deal. See how quick I am today? Now, I'm sure that you won't have any trouble renewing your licenses unless you made some changes. And as I told you earlier, I'm a dealer myself, and I've been in the car business a long, long time. I turned 70 this year. How about that? I know I look 21, but I turned 70, But I can share with you a lot more today. And since I do have an insurance agency, Paul has asked me to talk about that. But ka-ching! That's right. You know what that is? Giving away money, spending it. And I find that most dealers don't want to spend that money. It's too hard to make. But this is important because you want to be sure that you understand what you had to buy as well as why you need it and what it means. I get dealers crying all the time, well, they wouldn't pay my claim. It happens. And many times it could be your own fault because you didn't ask the right questions. We call this section risk management. If you're fortunate never to have had a loss, that's wonderful. And I hope you never had a loss that was unpaid, but it does happen. So I think we're going to first review some basic rules, okay? Rule number 1, if your vehicle is involved in an at-fault accident, your company is responsible. Whether you're driving, employee driving, customer driving, it's your vehicle. Now today, in modern America, most people are either a corporation, Inc., or an LLC, and it does provide you some protection from other stupid employees, but if you're driving, they can break that bell as well because you're the driver. Now, the next rule is that rule number 2, if you expect that insurance company to pay that claim, you must be properly insured and have paid the appropriate premium. Now, that's what's important. A lot of guys want to cheat, not pay the right amount, try to get out of paying it, and then what happens is they're not going to pay the claim. Rule number 3, all insurance companies provide specific coverage based on your application that you told your agent. That's what's important. Don't not tell the truth. You'll wind up having claims denied, not disclosing the employees you have, what you do at your company. But here's the biggie. All insurance companies list basic coverage that you requested, but there's about 50 pages of exclusions what they don't cover. And not very many dealers actually read and know those exclusions. And don't expect your agent to say, well, we don't cover this and this and this and this and this and this. It's not going to happen. It's up to you to understand this is what it covers and what is not covered. Now, the next thing here, rule number 4, the insurance pays for accidents, not intentional acts, like wrongdoings and things like that. So don't abuse your insurance and expect them to pay up all the time. Now, rule number 5, and this does happen, submitting fraudulent claims. That's a felony. You go to jail for that, and they take that very, very seriously. Now, with that, you need to understand some basic insurance terminology to help you be able to read your policy better. So, the first example is we all have to have, required by the state, at least basic liability insurance to qualify for a license. Now, the liability coverage covers you, your employees, your part-time drivers, your customers when they're involved in an at-fault accident. And then it'll pay for property damage, which is the car, what you hit, the telephone pole, whatever. And it'll also pay for bodily injury for the person that you hurt resulting from the accident. But it only pays up to the policy limits. So that's important to understand. But the big one here is you need to know who is driving and why they're driving when they get home at night or they let their teenager drive it. That's what's important. Be careful who drives it and what they drive it for. Now, here's the other thing about liability. The state requires a minimum of 50, 125 to qualify for a license. And a lot of folks don't know what those numbers mean. The first number, 50, stands for $50,000. If you're at fault and hurt somebody, it'll pay up to $50,000 for their injuries. The second figure, 100, stands for $100,000. If you hurt more than one person, it'll pay up to $100,000. But the last figure, 25, is what you hit. The most it'll pay is $25,000. So if you have a wreck, pick a cheap car to hit. That's very, very important. Or else be sure to have higher limits. Don't be afraid to get higher limits. Now, the second thing a lot of guys opt out on buying is the comprehensive general liability in case you have other operations not covered by your garage policy. So I always ask about that as well. Now, the next thing here is buying dealer's open lot or comprehensive and collision to protect your car. Now, here's why that's important. If you buy liability only and hit a telephone pole, it'll pay for the telephone pole, not your car. So you want to think about protecting your investment in your inventory by buying this coverage. But here's the thing about that. It pays the damage less your deductible, but be aware of this, and they won't normally tell you this. They pay on a total loss fair market value or what you paid for it, whichever is least, which is good to know if you pay too much for the car. Now, be aware there's also a very important thing called co-insurance penalty, and dealers get caught for this all the time. You tell your agent you got $100,000 inventory, and you have a wreck, and you got $200,000 inventory. Guess what? You're half insured. They pay half the claim, and still less your deductible. Another thing that you can get on there is called false pretense. What is false pretense? Someone going off with a car, you give them the keys and don't come back. That's not car theft. That's trick and device. It may not be covered unless you also bought another coverage called false pretense. There's also coverage called drive other car that you can buy. Because why? Most dealer policies exclude driving a car. We get calls from the airport saying, I need to verify Jerry's Auto Sales' insurance for this rental car. Sorry, we don't cover replacement cars. Could that happen to you? Yes, it can. Another thing a lot of dealers opt out for, trying to save a buck, is uninsured motorists, underinsured motorists. To protect yourself, you should consider that as well. Here in Georgia, a lot of people now are keeping insurance because the law is so strict. But if somebody misses a payment and the policy is canceled, and they hadn't gotten it replaced yet and run into you, they may not have no insurance or enough insurance for the underinsured. Trying to get some flaky person to pay out of pocket is pretty much impossible. Then there's another one, garage keeper's legal liability that you need. So think about these things. Because why? If you do consignment sales, and a lot of dealers want to have people bring them their car and leave it with them to try to sell it for them, it's not your car. The GIADA has a consignment form. I highly recommend you get that form from them if you're doing consigned cars. And to get that car covered by your policy, many times you got to buy the extra coverage for consigned cars. Very, very important. Towing. I don't think dealers tow like they used to. In the years past, we always had tow dollars and pull cars around. But a lot of policies exclude the towing operation. And what you're towing is called cargo. And so I want to be sure that your agent explains to you these different types of coverages, because you have a wreck, it's then too late. And by the way, hauling for yourself is one thing, but hauling for other people becomes hauling for hire, and you come under a lot of regulations then. Now, the next thing we're going to cover here is rent-a-car. We're getting lots of calls for dealers wanting to go into the rent-a-car business and make extra money. Business may be off a little bit, and they want to start renting some cars. But be aware that most dealer insurance policies exclude renting automobiles. the moment you rent it, it's not covered anymore. So you may have to obtain a separate rent-a-car policy. Now, there are a few major companies, if you've got a big policy with them and you've got a big rental fleet, who might package that for you, but for the most part, with a small fleet, you need to have a separate insurance policy. And I hate to say this, I went to rent-a-car business years ago, and I made a lot of money, I'm not bragging, renting cars to flaky people for cash, just how it was. But I learned the hard way, the insurance company learned the hard way, that these people are very risky. They run off with your car, they hide it from you, they let their girlfriend drive it, all this kind of stuff. They skip out with the car. So you have to understand how to protect yourself. Now here's the one I really want to emphasize on, and a lot of guys don't have this, and ladies. It's called workers' compensation. Now, Georgia law mandates if you have 3 or more employees, you must carry the workers' compensation. But if you just got 1 employee and don't carry that, and you send them to the auction to pick up a car, and they get involved in a wreck and get injured, your garage policy doesn't cover their injuries because they're working for you. You have to have workers' compensation. Now think about this. Oh, he's not an employee, he's a contractor. Well, did you verify his insurance and workers' comp? No. You put him behind the wheel, you're responsible for that driver, unless he's a real company with real insurance. Could you afford to pay someone's salary while they're injured, sometime a lifelong injury? Their salary, as well as all the medical bills? It happened to dealers. Think about this. You're liable. These part-time drivers get you into big, big trouble. You think it's okay, and it's really not. Now, there are driver services out there that they claim to be a driver service, but they're just a guy who wants to get, make a couple of bucks driving a car back. So be careful. When these people get hurt, oh, I hurt my back pushing that car out of the garage. I can't work. I got to go to the doctor. These things happen. Now, the next thing, the license bond you have to have. That license bond is not for your benefit. It is consumer protection. Be sure and protect your bond. I actually had a dealer call me up and say, Ron, I got to file a bond claim. I can't pay for my cars. I don't think it works that way. It protects the consumer from your failure to provide them the title to the car. Now, I'm running out of time. I'm going to give you a quick example. Just 2 months ago, a dealer sold the car, applied for the title. Everything was happy except the customer. They sent him a lawsuit. He didn't respond to it. They got a default judgment for $10,000. They filed a bond claim against him. They paid the money. They're suing him for the money back, and they canceled his bond. And to replace that bond, it's going to cost him about another $7,000 or $8,000. Protect your bond. Do not have bond claims. And just to remind you that on bond renewal coming up this coming year, they always recheck your credit. If your credit went south, it could cause you to some problems. Unpaid claims, it happens. If you don't be honest with your agent, tell him what you need and be sure you have the right coverage, there's going to be claims. The bigger problem I see is for some reason we're afraid to tell the agent we got a bad driving record. Well, I was going 85 miles an hour in a 35 mile an hour zone. Does that count? You betcha. It could affect your insurance rates substantially. So be honest and don't do the blame game. Don't tell people that you can't do it. I'm almost out of time and I got so much more to go, Paul. Can I get an extension here? I can't get an extension? Oh my goodness. Well, I've got so much more. So I want to thank you for allowing this old car dealer here to talk to you today, and want to wish you the best of luck in the car business. And I want to leave you some quick words, won't take but a second, about where we are in our society today. Now think about this. Our phones are wireless. Our cooking has become fireless. Our cars have become keyless. Our food become fatless. Our tires are tubeless. And the youth, many are jobless. Our leaders are shameless. Relationships, many times, are meaningless. People's attitudes become careless. And many babies are fatherless. Feelings have become heartless against our fellow people. And our children, unfortunately, many are becoming mannerless, which leaves us all speechless. And the worst part is, I think our government is clueless. Thank you very much.